Greetings, real estate enthusiasts, and welcome to another illuminating episode of TNT Real Estate Gold. I'm your host, Kenneth J., one half of the dynamic duo real estate team of TNT, and today we're delving into the world of real estate closings with a special guest who brings a wealth of expertise. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and let's embark on this journey together. Joining us today is seasoned closing attorney Nicole Pettis, with a passion for ensuring smooth and successful real estate transactions. And I can attest to that, as she's amazing at what she does. She is here today to share valuable insights into the closing process. But before I bring her on, here's a little bit more about her, just to set the tone.
Nicole Pettis stands as a beacon of legal expertise and unwavering dedication at O'Kelly and Sorahan Attorneys at Law, LLC, where she commands respect as a partner and attorney. Her remarkable tenure in the field of law is characterized by an exceptional track record, particularly in navigating the intricate world of real estate transactions. Nicole's journey to legal eminence is paved with academic excellence and relentless ambition. Her legal acumen was first shaped at the University of Alabama School of Law, where she was not only the esteemed vice president of the Labor and Employment Law Society, but also a laureate, honored with the Dean's Community Service Award. She further burnished her credentials with a Master of Business Administration from Franklin University, a pursuit that followed her undergraduate achievement, a Bachelor of Art in Sociology from the Ohio State University. Nicole Pettis is not just an attorney, she is a leader, a strategist, and a veteran whose multifaceted career and service to her country have sculpted her into a paragon of legal professionalism and civic virtue in Georgia's legal community.
Without further ado, let's welcome Nicole Pettis, partner to O'Kelly and Sorahan, to the show. Give it up.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to see you and to collaborate with you. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to be here to do this podcast with you today. So thank you for inviting me on your show.
Awesome. I'm so honored and graced by your presence. Believe that. Totally. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this show with us. I wanted to start things off with a little icebreaker, though, if you would.
Okay.
Now, it's going to be two questions, but if you could describe the closing process in 3 words, what would it be?
In 3 words, I would say it is, if you're closing with me, I'm going to say it's going to be smooth. It's going to be a smooth transaction. That's one. Collaborative. And this is 2 words, but 1 statement. Detail oriented. So heavy detail. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, ladies and gentlemen. I can attest to that. Having many closings with her, yeah, she is definitely the best that I've worked with.
Yeah.
Now, why don't you share a little something with our listeners, a little fun fact about yourself that they may not know?
Okay, something fun about me that a lot of people don't know. I am a veteran. I served as before you started Army vet. I took 4 years. I did a couple of overseas tours. I was in South Korea for 18 months and then in Baghdad for 13 months. So I have a little Army experience. So I'm a little tougher than I look.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That to know all of that. I know we had a little networking thing this past week, and you, of course, showed your skills in laser tag.
I did. I'm very proud of myself. I wasn't sure that I was going to win, especially because I had heels on during the laser tag. but I did pull off the victory. So I was very excited about that.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to, Now let's dive into the heart of our conversation now. The closing process is often a mystery for many, as you can attest to. Now, can you provide our listeners with a glimpse into the intricacies of what happens during a real closing?
Okay, so during the closing, typically the buyers and the sellers will come to our office. If they, if somebody can't make it to our office, we can. There are options in different circumstances to do like a power of attorney or a mail away. If you're not in Georgia or Atlanta, we have over 20 offices, so we're pretty flexible. If somebody is on one side of town, and we can accommodate split closings. But during the actual closing, the buyers and sellers will come. They will sign the documents. If it's a loan transaction, there will be a lender package that the buyer will sign off on. We'll receive the money both from the buyer if they have funds due, and then also send the lender. We'll review the documents, get the money, and then cut the checks. And during that time, one of the documents that the seller signs is a deed that actually transfers the property from the seller to the buyer. So that's what happens in a closing. Typically, a closing, we block out an hour for a loan and 30 minutes for a cash transaction. And just depending on the parties, I can usually sign a loan packet within like 15 to 20 minutes. And as we go through each document, I would explain each document to both parties. And, they do have the option to read if they want to, but I will give a summary from each document as we go through.
Awesome. I know you having worked with you, I can attest to that 20-minute. We were just waiting on
I don't try to rush it. It's a natural flow, but it is a lot of documents to get through. But I try to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time too, because at the end we just want to kind of take pictures and celebrate and ask questions about the house between the buyers and sellers to just give all the parties an opportunity to talk and discuss the house.
Exactly. And I didn't say that to say that, but how efficient and proficient you are in your closings. It's amazing. It's one of the things that I'm just like, wow, we're out of here. And different times, sometimes there may be delays on the lenders cutting the checks or whatever, but that has nothing to do with you. That is.
Yeah.
Great.
A lot of times we're waiting for a wire to hit. Sometimes things have different wire cutoff. So a lot of times if you're here longer than an hour, it's because we're waiting for the wires to hit either the buyer's account or the lender's account. In some situations, the lender, they like review the documents before they give the funding authorization. So after the buyer signs, you scan the documents over for them to review. Sometimes they can review them in 5 minutes. If it's a Friday and it's the end of the month, it's going to be longer than 5 minutes.
Gotcha.
So it just depends on the day and the timing, but we try to push it along.
Definitely.
Within an hour.
I know you said in one of the earlier questions that being smooth and collaborative. How do you ensure that it's smooth and a collaborative experience for the clients?
We do our best to manage everybody's expectations. We strive to get the numbers out, to the seller, a couple of days before the closing, to the buyer. As soon as we can't send buyer numbers out and it's a loan until we balance with the lender, until they said these are the exact numbers. So once we've balanced with the lender, we can send out those buyer numbers. Unfortunately, sometimes that happens the day before. Sometimes it happens the day of, and sometimes it happens 10 minutes after the closing was supposed to start. And so, but on that side, it's unfortunately out of our hands because, we're working with the lender to get those numbers out. So for buyers, if they don't have the number ahead of time, the best person to reach out to is the loan officer to get an estimate. Because you still want to send in a wire if you owe funds. And so just being mindful of where we're at with the file, what we've been able to get out to give people an opportunity to review the numbers ahead of time. And when they get to our office, just really managing people's expectations. If it's 20 minutes before the closing or 30 minutes before the closing, we notify parties, hey, we don't have a lender's package yet. If that's the situation, we're working on it. And so sometimes we try to push closings out a little further in the day if we have the flexibility and the ability to push it out like an hour or two, just so that when they come, we have everything prepared and ready to sign off on. Sometimes people, they still want to come in the office and they just want to wait. But just being very clear, with managing people's expectations so they're not frustrated with the situation, and just let them know, exactly what is going on, what we're doing to try to get that package or get that information so that we can start the closing. So I think that the best way to be like a smooth transaction is to be clear and concise with the communication and really just managing everybody's expectations on how this process is going to go. The majority of times, we will have the package. Everything will be, good. People will have the information ahead of time. And so one thing that I do recommend is when we send out those documents ahead of time, the settlement statement, for the agents to review it and also for the buyers and the sellers to review it. If you see that there's an issue with it, don't wait until you come into my office and say something. It's fine if you do, but if you let us know ahead of time, we can address it prior to you coming in, and so we won't have that lag time. Because if it's a change on the buyer side, if there's a lender, you have to send that over to the lender. So we'd rather be able to work and have everything worked out before parties even step into our office.
Awesome. That is, I can attest to that again too. I'm here to tell you the truth. But Nicole, if there was a process like I don't know how many steps it involves, but if there was a 5-10 step process to navigate that potential buyers and sellers could use, what would that look like coming into your office? What would those steps be?
Okay, so from like start to finish, from when we get the contract
Yes.
to closing. Okay, so the first thing we receive the contract, it's usually from the agent or from a loan officer will send us the contract. We'll open that contract. We typically try to do it within the same day at the maximum of your 24 hours, business hours of receiving it. And once we open up the contract, we send out information sheets to both the buyer and the seller. If we are holding the earnest money on the contract, and we would send out our wiring instructions or our options to send in the earnest money. So you can drop it off by check, you can pay it on the portal, or you can wire the funds into the we'll send that information to the buyer if our firm is the earnest money holder. It's very important when we send out those information sheets, especially for the seller, to complete those as soon as possible. Kenny, as you know, time is the essence, and everything is based off of the timeline, and usually it's a tight timeline. So once we receive that seller information sheet from the seller, that's when we're able to start ordering. If there's an HOA letter, to order that. If there's a water, so some counties, they require their water bill is automatically meetable. And so if you're in a county and the water bill is automatically meetable, we have to request that water from the county as well. And so getting that information filled out will allow us to go ahead and request those items along with like the payoff and information like that. So it helps us get everything that we need for our file to be able to be prepared for at closing. So if after you get it, it's what you can get a number of power and the prelims out to everyone so they can pick where they stand as far as the numbers are concerned. So after that process, my closer and my pre-closer, they work with the lender to get the lender all the additional documentation that they may require. The lender's can reflect like title documents. Once we get the title examination, if there's anything on that title examination that needs to be resolved, we'll reach out to the seller and we'll request maybe additional documentation if somebody's name changed, if they got married or divorced, So items like that we'll request once we get the title examination if necessary. And then just preparing with the lender to get everything ready to close, everything that they need for your underwriting requirements. And then once we have everything we need and the closing is scheduled, we will, my pre-closer will reach out to the parties, and you can schedule the closing the day that you send it the contract. But Kenneth, as you know, sometimes closing change dates. Not necessarily they get delayed, but sometimes the lender and all parties are ready to close earlier. So sometimes it moves. So sometimes the agents wait until a week or two, until we're closer to the actual close date to confirm a closing time, when they're for sure, when they know, that close date is the correct one. And so once we have everything and we schedule our closing, then we'll see that at closing.
Sounds amazing. That's smooth, and that's collaborative, and that's on point, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here first. We have a question from one of our viewers. They ask, what are some of the common challenges faced during the closing process, and how can buyers and sellers navigate them?
Usually it's revolves around the title. And so, during COVID, a lot of sellers, some sellers, they did like loan modification for, they received some type of loan relief. And so sometimes as a result of that, there was an additional, a security deed recorded. And so sometimes when we get the title back, it says that there's 2 security deeds, but on the seller information sheet that the seller filled out, they've only listed 1. And so we have to reach out to the seller and let them know. And so sometimes that can be a hiccup because, and I don't necessarily think that it was really, I don't know what to call it, an oversight. But if I have 10 closings with that second, it's like a HUD loan on the property. 10 of those sellers did not realize that it was a security deed that was recorded. So I don't know how those programs were explained to the consumers, but I've consistently heard from consumers 10 out of 10, and I think maybe, I've closed probably over 100. And
wow.
Out of all of those, only one person listed it on their seller information sheet as something that they realized that they needed to pay back at closing. So it's, so that tells me that, people just didn't understand what they were signing up for. And so sometimes that's a hard conversation because those payoffs can be $2,500 or they could be $75,000. And so when you're expecting to get that $75,000 or $50,000 back, and even $1,000 back, what you prepared for, then that can be a huge adjustment on the seller side, especially if they've already, gone on a contract for another property and they are, they are intending to use those funds to buy a new property, so that can be a big difference in what they're able to afford to buy, if they have to pay that back. Another thing that comes up are liens. Especially like Georgia Department of Revenue and IRS liens. When we get the title back and there's liens on there, we call and everyone's like, "Oh, I didn't know." They knew that they had to pay the IRS, but they didn't realize that it was going to be a lien on the property, and they have to pay that at closing for the IRS to release it. And so sometimes that does create, a bit of a challenge. And, Kenneth, we had one together at home.
Yeah, we did. Yes.
It was the HUD.
The HUD,
and
yes.
It was all of them.
All the IRS, HUD.
And so it really changed the person's circumstances, and so when you're doing that, listing conversation and you're going through the numbers and it's if they're unaware, they don't tell you that, then it's like, hey, you'll probably get $125,000 back.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in that situation, they had to wire us money. And so that can be a hard conversation and definitely creates challenges. But we
Yeah.
do try to notify all parties as soon as we receive the information to let them know, hey, this came up on title, so that it's not a surprise that you see when you're sitting at the closing table. That's not what we want.
Exactly. And I have to say, my experience with you on that particular closing, you handled that amazing. You really did. You guys were proficient and efficient through it all. And the seller, he just really needed to get out of the house. That was his biggest thing, and he got a lot of things cleared up when he got out of the house.
It was a hard conversation. It was good. And that's the one where it really made me realize, because I remember because you all went the extra mile, you all the lender who did that, and the lender was like, no, it doesn't have to be paid back. And we're like, yes, it does. We received the payoff. It's a HUD. And so that really told me, some of the people who were, doing that product, they just weren't explaining it. So he had no idea because his loan officer had no idea.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you recall those conversations, but the loan officer,
I do.
No, it doesn't have to be paid back.
Yep.
So, it was very frustrating. I would say
it was
information, and you rely on professionals in this industry, and so you just want to make sure that you're putting out good information and accurate information at all times.
Exactly. Yeah, because he definitely thought it wasn't. He thought it was forgivable. I think that was the word, and he never thought about it anymore. And I was just like, wow, that is they didn't explain that to him well enough. So.
And like I said, he is not the only one. That's something that's been consistent. So if you're listening to this and you're a seller and you sign some additional paperwork, a modification, a forbearance, or anything, just keep that in mind. Make some phone calls. That may be something that you have to pay back at closing. So.
Yes, definitely. So thanks for that, Nicole. That is very, very valuable, and that's something that sellers need to know. There are things, and a lot of that happened with COVID when they were doing the home mods and things like that. But thank you for that. So now that we talked about that story, let's talk about some success stories. Some of the success, well, all your closings are successful, but some of the extensive memorable moments that you shared with others, and what was particularly rewarding in those times that left a lasting impression on you?
Okay, well, so I've been doing this for 10 years, so I've got a lot of stories, but usually the ones that kind of are most touching and heartwarming for me is first-time home buyers. And sometimes it's just first-time home buyers, and other times it's the first-time home buyer and their family and the history of their family. And so when that occurs, you have like grandmothers coming to closing, younger siblings coming to closing, aunts. We've had the house packed at the closing time because it's a big deal, and it's big for people's family, and it's something to be very proud of. Home ownership is a huge accomplishment, and so we see a lot of tears of joy or tears of relief, or tears of accomplishment at the closing table, especially when it's those first-time home buyers, and occasionally I get young buyers, like 20-year-old buyers, and they're, first generation citizens. And so they're buying a home for their parents. And when I tell you, like, they're young, like their IDs are, Kenneth, on the IDs being under 21, they're like the opposite way.
Yeah.
So they're going to get the IDs, and it's a home that they're buying for their parents and their siblings. And so that's also, it's very, heartwarming and touching. And then it's just like, it's incredible that someone is so responsible doing that. you don't even want to know what I was doing at 21. I was not buying my parents stuff. 21. It's the shit. I was, probably trying to buy an outfit, go on a girls' weekend trip. I was just, thinking about myself, and so it's nice and refreshing to see it, someone so young thinking about their family and, changing the life course of their family with home ownership, with full home ownership and building wealth, generational wealth through that home ownership. So that's the first step. And so that's, it's a beautiful thing to see, and it's very exciting and a lot of celebration around that for sure.
Awesome. That is truly, truly, truly inspiring. And it's heartening to know and to hear those kind of stories. I guess that keeps you motivated and in the game to keep propelling and being the best for 2024 since you were the best in 2023.
I'm trying to keep it going.
Definitely. That is awesome. But let's switch the gear up right now with a lightning round, okay?
Okay.
It's a quick fire question. So whatever your gut feels, whatever, I'm going to say some words and I want your immediate gut response to it, okay?
Okay.
All right. You ready?
I think so.
Okay. So your favorite document to review during a closing?
Probably the settlement statement. I don't know that I would call anything favorite, but I do enjoy the numbers and the breakdown in the numbers and explaining how, everything in the contract is sitting here on this piece of paper. So just going through and explaining everything where it's very clear. As far as like selling proceeds and then the buyer's obligations for cash flows, they're just going through that document is one of my favorites, I guess.
Awesome. Okay. Next question. The most challenging part of your job?
Well, title issues, but I think we kind of delve into that a little bit. Really just, navigating the closing, as you know, in this industry, there's so many different personalities and people are coming from, they're in different periods of their life. And so, especially on the closing side, at the closing table, you want to be to be aware of the situation and where everybody is, a lot of times it's very celebratory because the person is buying their dream home and the seller has all this equity, so they're getting a check. So that's very exciting for all parties. But, sometimes property is being sold because there is a divorce or there's a death in the family, a spouse has passed away or a parent has passed away. And so sometimes people show up and they're still in mourning. So it's emotional, but it's a different type of emotional for people in the situation. So just kind of being mindful of how everyone is feeling, but also still giving the buyer the exciting experience that they want as well, because for them, it's still going to be a joyous occasion, and so just sort of navigating different personalities and sometimes when there's a divorce, they want to be in separate rooms. Not only the buyers from the sellers want to be in separate rooms, but sometimes the parties in the divorce, they also want to be in separate rooms. So sometimes we'll have 3 closing times for 1 closing. And so just every situation can be delicate for different reasons. Being aware. And so, if the agent knows or, if somebody gives us a heads up, just to be, extra, sensitive about, different,
Situation.
That's helpful for us. I don't want to come in like, popping champagne and it's a celebration when, someone just wants to to a parent. So just kind of not navigating. So I don't know that that's necessarily like maybe not challenging is the right word, but just something to be aware of. And be respectful of that pride and just to be situational awareness for sure.
Ooh, I love that. Situational awareness. Now that is that'll take you a lot of places in life. Definitely will. That is you just kind of struck a chord in my mind with that one. So, what is your celebratory closing song?
So, well, we don't really play music in the closing,
Okay.
but I do, some of my agents, I have social media, and I like to do the boomerang. So I'll put, music on the HUD, on the boomerang. And so there's a song called This Year Blessings by, I think, Victor Thompson. And so I like to use that as my music in the background, just being here, being a part of the transaction. It's just such a blessing for me, but it's also a blessing for, the buyer and the seller and everybody. So just reminding myself too that, it's a blessing to be here, and it's a blessing to be able to experience and a part of this process, this, life change process that can create generational wealth.
Want to ask you some things about future predictions and insights.
Okay.
Looking ahead, what do you anticipate as the future trends in real estate closing? What are they going to be looking like? Are there innovations or changes on the horizon that our listeners should be aware of?
Um, So I can't officially give any predictions just because I'm not qualified. But I've been going to a lot of different seminars and hearing other people who are qualified to give those predictions, or who's done the background research and everything. And so one of the things that I recently heard at a seminar was that there's going to be interest rates, a decrease in interest rates, which is great news for our industry. And so a lot of the buyers who are maybe on the fence are waiting for that interest rate to drop. And once those interest rates drop, they're going to be jumping back into the market. That's going to create, uh, we've had an issue with low inventory. So once those additional buyers come into the market, you're going to have, multiple bidding situations again, on one property, and highest and best, and bidding over asking price. If there's a huge influx in buyers back into the market. Another thing, I went to one yesterday, and they were basically essentially saying the same thing about the interest rate. They're supposed to drop down, but also just talking about our inventory. The the builders are not they cannot keep up with the demand and the housing demand. They're all the buyers that are in the market. And then what has also happened, Kenneth, I know that you're well aware, is that all the homeowners who purchased during those when the interest rates were like 2.25%, 3%, 3.25%, they are not going anywhere. So they're not wanting to sell their house because they have such a great interest rate. Some will still get in the market for different, reasons, but a lot of people are just holding, because they've refinanced and they're not going to be able to borrow money at that low rate right now. And so that also has impacted our inventory in the industry across the board, as well as people not wanting, when a natural life event happens, like your family is expanding or you're downsizing, where people ordinarily may, buy or sell, they don't want to because they have this great interest rate, and it makes more sense for them to stay put for the time being. Um, so hopefully when the interest rates, I think you said they're supposed to go down 3 times throughout this year. If that occurs, then maybe that will encourage some of the homeowners right now to put their house on the market and find something else with that lower interest rate.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that is some very inspiring news. Like you said, Nicole, a lot of the buyers are, because they got those low interest rates. I know we're one. Our interest rate is really low. Um, and it's like, where are you going to go? If you know what I mean? When you got that low rate, and it's like, for the square footage of a home that you might unless you're downsizing, it's a great time. you know,
But
that could be
even if
one
you're
benefit.
downsizing, if you were have, you refinanced and your interest rate was, 2.5, and you're downsizing, your interest rate right now, staying 6 within 7, your
Yeah.
mortgage payment could be higher in a smaller house than it is right now. And so for some people, it doesn't make sense to downsize because they'll be paying more money.
More money. Touche. Yes. See the insight you get here? See the insight you get here with Nicole. She's an amazing, amazing attorney. And I'm so glad that she's in our lives. She makes our lives, our real estate lives, just so much smoother, uh, collaborative. And what was the other word? Celebratory. Yes. Now, your foresight and wisdom has provided our audience with valuable perspectives as they navigate through the land of real estate transactions, Nicole. So I thank you so much for being a part of this show. Unfortunately, now our time together is drawing to a close. And I just want to thank you so much, Nicole, for taking time out of your day to be a part of this show and sharing your expertise and wisdom with the masses because the real estate world changes every day. And people like you who are in it every day actually have the inside scoop on things that are happening. And again, thank you for being so beautiful, wonderful, amazing, and gracing us.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you interviewing me. It's an honor. And I do want to say, apart when you asked me earlier about, how to ensure that it's a smooth transaction, really just working with great agents like yourself and your team. When your files are always, clean and you communicate well. And so all the little things that you do, how detail oriented you are, it makes our job easier. We don't have to manage your client's expectations because you've already set it from the beginning. So when we have those conversations, it's not new information that we're giving them. It's just like a refresher. And so my office, my staff, we love you. We love your team. So thank you for choosing us to close your deals. But you are part of the reason why, when you experience things with me, it's smooth. That's a reflection of you and your files and your clients and the work that you put into getting the transaction to close. If it's easy, if it's already easy, it's not a lot I have to do to make it look even easier. And so that's how I feel about you and your team. Like you've done everything for me, essentially. Your buyers are vetted, you know how to make hiccups with the lending and stuff like that. And so it just makes everything a lot easier for us. And so, of course, that, I'm at the end of the transaction. So it's like, oh, she did all the work, but you've done all the work beforehand. So thank you for all the things that you do. Thank you for sending your business my way. I really appreciate you and your team so much.
Look, I'm just humbled and graced to be in your presence, Nicole. I'm telling you, you're awesome. I receive it. I send it right back to you because I've dealt with other people and it's not so pretty.
Yeah, and no one's perfect, and sometimes things just happen,
Yeah,
and we just, the best thing is just keep everybody informed, and you just work through it, so.
definitely. Your knowledge and expertise has truly illuminated the often overlooked world of real estate closings. People have no idea, but now that you've enlightened us and shared with us some of the processes, not some of them, the actual processes. Again, thank you, Nicole. And if you have any final thoughts that you want to share to the world out there, anybody looking to buy or sell, you can go right ahead and shoot your shot.
Spot. Just I look forward to celebrating and closing with you. If you're thinking about buying or selling right now, I would love the opportunity to close with you, and of course with Kenneth and his team as well. So, if you have any questions or follow-up questions, you can reach out to me directly or reach out to Kenneth. And who knows, maybe we can do a follow-up podcast. my first one. It's kind of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. I welcome that. I truly welcome that because the market does change and shifts as we know, so people of the world out there, I just want to thank you for joining us on this enlightening exploration of real estate closings on TNT Real Estate Go, baby. Now, if today's discussion resonated with you, please hit that subscribe and don't forget to like and share this episode with fellow real estate enthusiasts like yourself. Nicole, again, TNT Real Estate team thanks you from the bottom of our heart, and we wish you many more closings and endlessly.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, people, have a great one. This is Kenneth J signing off.
Today's show is brought to you by our sponsor, KJ Multimedia Solutions. We extend our deepest gratitude. Your partnership is invaluable.